Someone flicks a lighter outside a bar, cups both hands around it, draws smoke into their lungs on purpose. You've seen it 1,000 times. Maybe you've done it. Here's the part nobody thinks about in that moment. That exact act, burning something and pulling the smoke into your body, isn't a modern habit with an old-timey rebrand. It might be older than farming, older than pottery, possibly older than the bow and arrow. So when did people actually start smoking? To answer that honestly, you have to go back even further than the plant itself. Before anyone chose to smoke anything, smoke was already a constant. Once fire entered the picture, and that happened well over 1 million years ago, breathing smoke stopped being a choice at all. Every person who ever huddled near a flame for warmth, or to cook, or just to see in the dark, was pulling smoke into their lungs whether they wanted to or not. For most of human history, smoke wasn't something you decided to inhale. It was just the air near the only light source you had. Which means somewhere in all those centuries of unavoidable smoke, someone eventually noticed something. Not all smoke is the same. Burn the wrong plant by accident, and the smoke does something to you. Makes your head swim, makes the fire feel warmer, the dark feel friendlier, your thoughts feel looser. And once a person notices that, it's a very short step to noticing it on purpose the second time. So when did people actually start doing this deliberately? Almost certainly, this happened over and over, in more places than anyone will ever be able to count. Someone, somewhere, breathes in the wrong smoke, feels something unusual, and either never thinks to do it again, or doesn't survive long enough to try. Most of those moments simply vanished, unrepeated, unrecorded, gone the moment the person who noticed them was gone too. What we can actually see in the ground isn't the very first time this ever happened. It's just the earliest instance where the habit stuck long enough and mattered enough to leave something behind for someone else to eventually dig up. Further back than almost anyone would guess. Over 12,000 years to the remains of a small fire and a handful of charred seeds from a wild tobacco plant left behind in the ashes. That number is almost hard to process. The next oldest solid proof of tobacco use before this find was itself already ancient, and this pushed the record back another 9,000 years on top of it. Now the honest complication: finding tobacco seeds in a fire doesn't automatically prove someone smoked it. They could have chewed it, burned it to keep insects away, used it as medicine. But here's what tips it. Wild tobacco isn't pleasant. It's harsh, bitter, strong enough to make an untrained body sick. Nobody stumbles into using a plant like that by accident. You use something that rough on purpose because you already know exactly what it does, and you want that anyway. So what were they actually after? Almost certainly not what you're picturing. For most people today, smoking is a private habit. A break, a craving, something you do alone, on your own schedule, mostly for yourself. The oldest evidence of this points somewhere completely different. Thousands of years later, in burial grounds where communities mourned their dead, small burners were used to release a very different smoke, this time from a plant strong enough to genuinely alter the mind. Not lit for a private moment alone, lit inside a funeral, breathed in together, by people who may have believed it helped them reach the person they'd just lost. Not a private habit, a shared one, practiced in grief, not stress relief. There's a reason smoke specifically, and not just eating a plant or drinking it as tea, kept showing up at moments like this. Smoke doesn't stay put. It rises, thins out, and disappears into the same sky everyone standing there is looking up at. If you're trying to send something toward a person who is no longer reachable by ordinary means, a substance that visibly travels upward and vanishes is about as close to a physical metaphor for that as the natural world offers for free. Somewhere else, a different plant, the same pattern all over again. Long ceremonial pipes, some going back roughly 5,000 years, weren't reached for out of boredom. They sealed peace agreements. They marked decisions an entire community had to honor together. Passing a lit pipe around a circle worked less like a smoke break and more like signing something that couldn't be taken back. Think about why breath specifically made such a convincing seal on a promise. You can fake a handshake, You can say words you don't mean, but taking a breath of something into your own body, in front of witnesses, in front of the people you were just at odds with, is hard to fake and impossible to take back once it's done. Sharing that same smoke, pulled from the same source, breathed by every person in the circle in turn, made the agreement physical. And it wasn't only grief and diplomacy. In several early civilizations, completely independently, smoke shows up in something much closer to a doctor's office. Old medical instructions from ancient Egypt describe heating a mix of herbs and breathing the fumes through a reed, specifically to ease coughing and tight breathing. Physicians in ancient Greece wrote about the same basic idea. An old medical tradition in India describes something almost identical: specific herbs, specific ailments, smoke as the delivery method. 3 civilizations, no contact with each other, all landing on the same idea. If the lungs are the problem, maybe smoke is how you reach them. None of this is unique to people either. Elephants have been documented deliberately seeking out overripe, fermenting fruit, well past the point of it just being food, and eating it anyway. Certain monkeys go out of their way to eat mushrooms that do far more than fill their stomachs. Whatever this instinct actually is, it doesn't stop at the edge of our species. We just happen to be the ones who figured out how to do it with smoke and fire. Figuring it out was not a safe process. Long before anyone could look a plant up, the only way to learn what a given smoke did to you was to breathe it and find out. Some plants made the fire feel warmer and the night feel calmer. Others made a person violently sick. A few could kill outright, and the only lesson anyone walked away with was the one paid for by someone who didn't survive it. Nobody wrote any of it down, because for most of that time, nobody could. The knowledge that this smoke helps and that smoke kills moved the only way information moved back then. Someone who knew told someone who didn't, out loud, probably near a fire, probably more than once, until it stuck. So look at what's actually forming here. Grief, diplomacy, medicine. 3 continents, 3 different plants, 3 unconnected ancient cultures, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, all independently landing on the same idea. Burn something, breathe in the smoke, let it change you on purpose. That's not a coincidence. That's close to a universal instinct. Here's the part worth sitting with, and it deserves care, not a punchline. None of this makes smoking harmless. It never was. And nothing about the past changes what burned plant matter does to lungs over a lifetime. What's actually interesting isn't whether it was good for you, it's what it was for. For most of human history, smoke wasn't something you reached for the way a cigarette gets reached for today. It marked grief. It marked treaties. It marked contact with whatever a community believed was listening. It treated a cough, occasional, shared, loaded with meaning every single time. Somewhere along the way, that changed. The same basic act, plant, fire, lungs, got pulled out of the ceremony, out of the sick room, out of the circle of people passing something around together, and turned into a thing one person does alone, as often as they want, for no occasion at all. It didn't happen all at once. First, the plant had to travel far beyond the one culture that originally grew it, carried to people who had no idea what it used to mean. Then it had to be grown in quantities no single ceremony or medicine cabinet ever needed. Then came faster, cheaper ways to prepare it, so lighting it up stopped requiring any real effort or occasion at all. Strip away the distance, the scale, and the ritual, one after another, and what's left is just the bare mechanical act. Plant, fire, lungs. The version most familiar now, alone, daily, tied to stress and habit more than anything sacred, is, historically, the strange one. The ritual is what's ancient. The habit is the recent invention. So when did people start smoking? At minimum, over 12,000 years ago, around a fire, with a plant too harsh to use without knowing exactly what it would do. And in a much less deliberate sense, for as long as anyone has kept a fire burning at all. But maybe the better question isn't when. It's what changed between then and now, how something that once marked the most important moments of a person's life quietly became something to do without thinking, alone, between one ordinary hour and the next. The smoke is the same. What it means to breathe it in has almost completely flipped.